I want to talk about suicide versus euthanasia and, you know, why it's so frowned upon and people don't have the choice over their own life if they're of sound mind. Like, there are some people who actually just never have wanted to be alive. Like, they've never felt happy, they've never belonged, and they don't want to. Like, but it's like if you try to leave because you don't want to be here, you will get treated like a criminal or a mental health patient, just locked up, drugs forced into you against your will, and then you're like monitored and checked and treated like a fucking baby. But you're not actually given any help if you're sick or any motivation and reason to be here if you just simply don't want to. Like, the world is overpopulated. There are so many issues. There's a lot of violence and negligence and poverty and suffering and pain. And there are some people who are just in so much agony, they're not going to get out of it. And your reason for not letting them go is hope. You want them to stick around and, like, go to your lifeline links and call up your blue knots and your black dogs and talk to random strangers over the phones and get referrals to people who don't know anything, and it's all on a script from a textbook. No one's there, no one cares. But that all aside, there are some people who just don't like being here. Like, even if they aren't in pain physically because they're sick or they have a mental health issue or anything, some people are just fucking miserable and they don't want to be part of what's going on. So why should they? You know, you guys don't go to parties you don't want to go to. You don't hang out with people you don't want to. You don't commit to things that you're not capable of or your heart's not in. Like, that's what life is for some people. And we'll put our pets down so that they don't have a shitty quality of life, so that they're not in pain when they're confused and they don't know what's going on, because we don't want them to suffer. But we actually expect people to keep living like that because we don't want them to go, but we're also not doing anything to change that feeling and give them a reason to want to be here. Like, it's very controlling, it's very dark, it's cruel, it's torture. So while I'm not suicidal, and I haven't been for almost a year now, I do welcome death. And when my time is up, I'm not going to run around and try and find ways to kill myself. Sorry to disappoint you, Dalesford. I'm going to ride it out. So the reality is, the pension's not enough for anyone to survive on, let alone with a chronic illness that's deteriorating by the day, let alone with a mental illness, let alone someone alone with not a single person to help or support them. So if it's just one human being out in the middle of nowhere with just the pension and a chronic illness, that person's not going to live to a ripe old age. They're not going to be healthy. They're not going to be happy. They're just going to exist. You're not going to give two shits what happens to them. You don't even care if they're dead or alive. But if they're the ones who try to take their own lives, that's when you're going to step in and be like, no. And I just think it's cruel. It's so cruel. So I'm very pro-suicide if someone isn't just in a manic state and it's just fresh off the bat because they don't, if it's someone who's never wanted to be here, has never had support, has tried, and is just never been happy from childhood, adolescence, adulthood, like never wanted to be here. How is it just not their right to say, no, thank you, not for me? And you would actually be able to filter out a lot of the world's problems. You'd free up a lot of tax dollars with people who are just anchors on your government funding. You'd free up a lot of services for people. There'd be a lot of it would free up the rental, the property market. Everything there'd be more of. There'd be more space. There'd be more air. There'd be more money saved. That can go into other things. The world doesn't need to keep overpopulating with people who don't want to be here, who are miserable and hate it. So I do feel that if you had something in place where someone, gets of a certain age and they can sign a form, just say you are a donor, just when you make a will. If I get to X age and I, am at this blah, 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 whatever the deal is, take me, let me go. Give me the injection and just let me go to sleep and do it properly and safely, and then it's all, but you won't, because then you're going to have dodgy doctors and practices out there where people are getting murdered under the name of euthanasia, and I get it. So because there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on, a lot of corruption, you don't want to do things that are going to help people. So instead, no one gets help and only the dodgy things continue. So it's like that with everything. You have not created a world that is safe for everyone. You have not created a world that is quality of living for everyone. And you have not created a world where everyone is happy. No, not everyone lives like you or cares the way you do. And not everyone wants to be here. So it's not, yeah, I'm very pro euthanasia.